Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to go back to history, talk about what was the point of all the European religious wars when we're all just pissing away our faith as it is. And before we begin, let's start with our prayer. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut era in principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Amen. We do have a playlist here called Catholicism History, where we've talked about like how to respond to people when they ask about the Crusades or the Inquisition and French Revolution and all these things like that. And look, I'm not in any way condoning war or religious war, but there's a condition called presentism, where we look at the past through our present worldview. And I think we have to remember that, given 12th century, 16th century, 18th century, it was a different time, and they believed that it was right to take up the sword to fight religious wars, even among Christians. And so we can't judge the past as like, oh, these people that are with it. Also remember that it was considered treason to be going against the faith of the particular time. So whether it be Elizabethan England after a generation after Henry VIII broke off and became schismatic, they saw it as treasonous if you were harboring Jesuits or any Catholics. Think of someone like Edward Campion, a great martyr. They saw it as treason if you were supporting Catholicism. They would call you a recusant. Or if you look at Catholic Spain, they would call you treasonous if you were trying to push some Protestant faith like Calvinism. So both sides did this. And I just think of it in this way. I know history pretty well, and I think of like, you really saw the religious war starting in the 16th century after Calvin created Calvinism, and certainly Luther earlier in the century. And really you just saw a lot of fighting for about 200 years. A lot of it was in the German principalities, and you saw different pieces that would happen, like the Peace of Augsburg in 1558, Peace of Westphalia after the 30 Years' War in 1648. And essentially, these were all compromises, like where essentially it was like the prince or the duke, the head of that kingdom, duchy, would determine the religion for all of its people. And then it was kind of like a live and let live. But you would see thousands of people dying in these religious wars. Catholics fighting Calvinists, Calvinists fighting Lutherans, everybody persecuting the Anabaptists and whatnot. You see the Jacobite rebellions, most famously seen in the great books Outlander, how the Scottish, who were Catholic up until the time of John Knox breaking them away and creating Presbyterianism, which was a form of Reformed Calvinism, they were fighting religious wars through there. Think of Mary Queen of Scots. This is in the late 1500s. And then even after Henry VIII, and there's this idea that Henry VIII, when he became schismatic and broke the church away from the Church of England, he created that and broke it away from Rome, that everyone in England was like, yeah, we're cool with just pissing away 1,000 years of Catholic history in England. No, Our Lady of Walsingham was one of the biggest pilgrimage sites. Thomas of Becket, great saint. Look, we had all these saints in England. No, there were a lot of people that were like, yeah, we ain't going with this. But the Scots were certainly very Catholic. And you saw like in the Jacobite Rebellion in 1715, 1745, around that area, where they wanted to bring back the Catholic monarchs, the Stuart monarchs. And so they fought England, and you saw tons of the Scottish being killed over this. And so like there was a time where Christians were so passionate that they would kill each other for the true faith, whatever they thought the true faith was. And now you look at Europe and you look at all of the kind of the descendants of these people, and like, yeah, we don't, religion? It's like everybody just smokes pot, and like, they say that cities where there's more pot consumption, there's less crime, simply because like people are so high, they're like, do I really want to go commit a crime? Yeah. And I think that's what's happened with secular kind of values, the moral relativism, the postmodernism, whatever you want to call them, in the last 100 years, that people just don't care enough about religion to go to war. And then when they read about these religious wars, they're like, really? Like, people really would fight if you wanted to be a Methodist in an Anglican world? Remember, the breakaways of the breakaways were still persecuting other breakaways. So you see in the Anglican world, the Episcopalians, the Anglican Church, was persecuting the Puritans, right? That's why they came to America. They were persecuting the Methodists and a laundry list of groups. And so you look back and like, man, why were people killing it? Like, my faith doesn't mean enough to me to kill people. And I think in some ways it's sad. Again, I'm not condoning religious violence, but back then we actually cared about our faith. And we don't. I mean, even if you look at like Catholic or Christian versus non-Christians, the great Muslim wars that we fought, I mean, really going back to when Muhammad came to power in the early 600s, when he took over a large swath of Christendom, Iraq, present-day Egypt, all of North Africa, that was all Catholic Christian. He started taking that area over. And then up to today, the Muslims are certainly still fighting the jihad, the religious war, because on some levels they're like frozen in time in the 7th century. And you know what? You have to give them some kudos, because it's like they still care enough, whether it be Boko Haram, like in Africa, they still care enough to like practice their faith and persecute people. And there was a time where like Christians would unite to fight the Muslim foe. Think of 16th century, Battle of Lepanto, the siege on Vienna, and then 1527 and 1683. All these times, and now it's just like, you know, like what would we do really if there was a Muslim country that was just like, let's say Afghanistan, like that's just avowedly jihadist Muslim. They came and they invaded a Catholic country. First of all, name a Catholic country, like a truly Catholic country, and invaded. Like, would the people be like, this is like a religious war? They'd be like, let me get back to Netflix. Like, this is the world that we live in, where consumerism and recreational time and obesity and junk food and all these things have willed away our desire to fight. You know, they always say that empires corrode from within, and America is definitely corroded from within. Just look at the way we dress, the obesity we have, the rampant alcoholism and drug use and all these things. We are prime to be overtaken. I saw some stats, something like only 20% of American men in their 20s would even qualify to be able to join the military for either mental health reasons or physical health or all these things, obesity. And in closing, because I know this is kind of rambling, but you know, I watch a show like Outlander, and I'm like, man, there was a time where people would fight for their faith. And I don't know, maybe that time will come back. Maybe we just need a true foe. Like if aliens came, true foe. But it's just fascinating to see, like, during these times where people would die for their faith. You think as recently as the 20th century, the Cristeros in Mexico, as close as Mexico, and all the Christians in Orthodox Russia, and all these places that died to their faith. They died and were martyrs for these atheist communist regimes who told them they had to worship the state and not God. And you see all these people who did it with conviction. Of course, there were tons of people who apostatized and they're like, yeah, we're not Christian anymore, you know, just to live another day. But you see these people die for their faith, and now it's just like, Post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.